Freelance friends, thank you for joining me. Happy to have you here again. Today we're going to be talking about the beginning of the year. If you are watching this when the episode is released, then you know that we are very close to the end of the current year and very close to the beginning of the year. So let's talk about that. So as a freelancer, the beginning of the year doesn't always feel like a clean slate. It sometimes feels more like a handoff because once your freelance business is established, you're going to have clients who return from their holiday break ready to move. And many businesses obviously also start the year with a new budget cycle. So budgets are going to reopen if they have been paused due to end of year. This will cause conversations to restart. And I know that I often find that work can ramp up rather quickly. Sometimes before you've had a chance to decide on how you want the year to function. And I do believe that it is important to map those things out before you get going, because once the year starts off, sometimes it's more challenging to do. So that's why January is less about reinvention and more about getting ready to operate, making sure that your business is prepared to respond clearly, efficiently, and consistently when the clients return. I have some tips on how to approach the start of the year in a way that supports the work that you actually want to do. I also have a downloadable worksheet to help you act in accordance with these tips. If you are interested, the link is in the comments section, and you can also find it at the Freelance Shift website. So the first one is to start your year by deciding what you're going to say yes to this year. So before inquiries start stacking up, take a moment to make a few quiet decisions. Ask yourself what type of work you want to generally be available for right now. Not in theory, but given your current capacity, interests, capabilities, and constraints. So this may mean that you have to decide which projects you can accept without hesitation, which ones you're open to, but only under very specific conditions, and which types of work you're no longer prioritizing. As humans, our freelance business is going to evolve and change over time. So if you've been doing this a while, it's not unusual that the type of work that you're doing has changed over the years. For instance, I never did anything with AI learning materials and trainings prior to the last 2 years because there wasn't a demand. I was teaching other more technically based classes along with some leadership classes, and the business just evolved. I didn't start off doing leadership classes, but because of various roles that I've had over the years and businesses that I've owned, I've been asked to do leadership classes as time evolved. Now with AI training, I have been asked to do AI training as it's become more and more prominent. So you don't need to announce these decisions publicly. What I would encourage you to do is to reflect on it and know your answers before you're asked the questions. Because when you're clear internally, your responses are going to become clearer externally. And that will set the tone for your year in a positive way. The second suggestion that I have is a little bit more concrete in the way that I'm encouraging you to walk through your intake like your client would. And the reason that I am encouraging this is because you want to ensure that it's easy for the right clients to contact you, hire you, and inevitably pay you without any friction in the process. Now, I know from experience that sometimes we think that we have a great system, a great setup, and it's easy peasy for our clients to get in touch with us and get the information that they want. However, when you actually go through the process step by step, you could possibly have a different experience. So I want you to examine, how does someone initially reach you? How clear is what happens after that? And how much effort does it take to move from interest to engagement? So whether you have a website or a LinkedIn page or some other mechanism for people to contact you, you want to consider the prior questions and also pay attention to whether the contact options are easy to find. We all know that people are very busy and that there are a lot of options out there. So you do want to make sure that those contact options are always easy to find. And then reflect on how quickly next steps are communicated. Do you provide them with this information fairly quickly? Also, do your intake questions help surface good fit projects without a lot of back and forth between you and the prospective client? Because how smoothly a client can move from yes to a signed agreement and paid invoice is important. And if your intake relies on a lot of email chains, repeated explanations, or unnecessary manual steps, that friction is going to show up repeatedly for various clients as the year gets busier. So please review your contact form or booking link for clarity. Ensure that your intake questions support better scoping and decision making. Confirm that contracts, proposals, and payment steps are straightforward and accessible. Basically, you want to remove any barriers that you can between the client interest and commitment. That way, it's easier for them to work with you, and you end up with more energy for the work itself. Next, set your decision rules before you need them. This is very important because, again, decisions that you need to make tend to arrive quickly at the beginning of a new year. And rather than evaluating every opportunity from scratch, simply take the time to establish a few decision rules ahead of time so that these can act as anchors when things move quickly. They may sound like, I don't take on projects with timelines shorter than 1 month. Or, if scope isn't clear by this point, I pause the conversation. Or, this type of work requires this level of budget. You don't have to necessarily establish rigid policies, but you do want to have some reference points in place. That way you can reduce overthinking and prevent reactive decision making that sometimes happens when our capacity is stressed and we're feeling rushed. Next, you want to reestablish boundaries before they are tested. Boundaries are very, very important. I was listening to a podcast yesterday where they were talking about a freelancer who planned on taking time off for the holidays. A regular client asked them to work into that time they had set as unavailable. They agreed, and then the client stretched it a little bit, and the person ended up with a lot less time off than they had planned. We don't want this to happen to us or a similar scenario. So boundaries are always the easiest to maintain when they're introduced proactively. So the beginning of the year is a perfect time to do that. Reinforce your response time expectations. Do you get back to people within 24 hours, within 48 hours? Is it business hours? Is it any type of hours? Do you not respond after a certain time of night for your time zone? Things that you want to think about. Also, you want to clarify how changes or revisions are handled. This is especially important in the learning industry, but of course it's also important in other industries. How is that handled? Is one revision included? Is two revisions included? How much time do you give the client for their comments? And how much time do you give yourself to respond to those comments with revisions? Also, just reconfirm your availability and scheduling norms. So if you are planning to be out of the office, the client knows well ahead of time. Now, of course, this may involve updating your onboarding materials so that those questions are answered in your materials for the clients, maybe setting up some automated emails, or simply adjusting how you frame your expectations within the conversations that you do have with your clients. Because when boundaries are established early, they feel structural rather than reactive, and they're easier to uphold as the year progresses. Next, you want to update the information clients actually use. Instead of refreshing everything, focus on the things that clients tend to rely on most. So this could be something like your service description, your booking or scheduling link, any onboarding documents that you have, or FAQs. If clients are regularly asking the same clarifying questions, that's a sign that something needs to be improved in your processes. It's often small updates that you can do that will reduce a lot of confusion and save time over and over again. Think of it as maintenance, not marketing. Next, you want to prepare for the work that you want more of. This is something that I'm personally trying to work on this coming year, because the beginning of the year can be an opportunity to quietly shape what comes next. I am not making a big, huge announcement, but I am strategically planning some shifts. So rather than asking how to attract more work, because there are only so many hours in the day, ask yourself, how can I currently describe my services? What outcomes do I emphasize? And what examples or stories do you lead with? Because the work you want more of is likely to come and continue to come when you are ready for it. So be sure that everything is aligned with what you plan to do moving forward. Oftentimes, when we do have these various strategies in place, it becomes less likely that you have to chase opportunities because you're already positioned to receive them and to sustain them once they arrive. What's the saying? When you build it, they will come. Next, decide what you're improving or offering this year. This is an often overlooked decision. What you're leaving behind. Not every system that you have needs optimization. Not every process needs refinement. And you don't have to continue offering everything that you currently offer. Again, your business can be fluid as time evolves. Over time, freelancers often accumulate services because once upon a time, that offering made sense. Not because that opportunity would still make sense now. So consider which offers feel unnecessarily complex or draining, which services exist out of habit rather than intention, and what could be paused, simplified, or removed from your offerings. Think of this as decluttering your freelance offerings. This can be a very powerful tool, just as powerful, if not more powerful, than adding something new. Because fewer services can lead to clearer positioning, stronger delivery, less cognitive load on your end, and better alignment on how you want to work. So take that time, decide what you're not offering any longer, and create the space to do things better. For freelancers, the beginning of the year isn't a reset button. Instead, it's a chance to make early practical decisions that can reduce the friction in your business and better support your client interactions. This will make the rest of the year much easier to navigate. When your business is ready to be contacted, hired, and paid, then everything else tends to fall into place. And that's not a huge reinvention. It's just preparation. If you found this episode helpful, please like and subscribe. I hope to see you on the next one. And don't forget to download the worksheet that can help you work through all of the tips that we discussed in this video. Thank you. Take care.